So with that, we have come to the end of the identity synchronization module, where we saw the different kind of identity synchronization options that you have as an organization and the ways that you can set it up. Yeah. Now we will move on to the next module where we'll talk about how you can secure your environment with the Microsoft 365 Defender solutions. Yeah. But before we start securing our environment, we have to understand which are the threats that are out there, right? That is affecting different organizations. Now, depending upon which threats that we are dealing with, we have to deploy a security solution that can help you mitigate that threat. Yeah. So the first step to deploying any kind of security solution is to understand which threat your organization is dealing with. So in this module, we're going to be exploring the different kind of threat vectors and data breaches issues that an organization faces. Yeah. Now, before that, let's understand the kill chain scenario. Okay. A kill chain scenario is nothing but an attack that follows a basic pattern and proceeds from one step to the next one. Yeah. And this is the kill chain scenario that you guys can see over here. Right. Now, in terms of attackers, right, you can have two kinds of attacker. First is an external attacker, and the other one is your malicious insider. Now, out of this, I would say the malicious insider is the one that is very difficult to deal with and can cause the most harm. Okay. Because this is a person that is sitting inside your organization, and it's probably a person that has access to a lot of resources in your organization. Yeah. So this is the person that is very difficult to deal with. Now, a common process that kill chain or an attacker follows is the kill chain scenario that you see over here. Yeah. So first thing that they try to do is they try to breach into the account. They try to compromise the account, right? That is the first step that they take. Once they've got the hold of that account or they have the necessary account credentials, now they'll try to elevate the privilege of that account by running some credential harvesting scripts or elevation of privilege scripts on like a shared computer or a shared machine. Yeah. Once they have successfully done that, now they'll try to exfiltrate your data through some kind of ransomware. They'll maybe encrypt the data and demand ransom for the decryption key. And if you do not provide or adhere to their request, they might delete the data, which makes recovery almost impossible. Yeah. So this is a common kill chain scenario an attacker follows to infiltrate your organization. Yeah. Our job as a security administrator is to deploy a security solution that will help you protect or add a barrier in progressing through these steps. Yeah. So your job is to implement security measures on choke points in this kind of chain. Yeah. So let's understand the different kind of threats or different kind of ways an attacker initiates an attack. Yeah. So phishing is a technique a hacker uses to retrieve sensitive information such as users' account credentials or credit card number. Yeah. In a phishing attack, as you can see in this example, it looks like that the email is coming from a legitimate source. except this is not coming from a legitimate source. Maybe the URL of the website is in question. Now, spear phishing is a type of a phishing attack directed at a specific individuals. Maybe your, C-level guys like CEOs, CTOs, or people who have access to your sensitive information in your organization, like your accounts department, HR department, and so on. Yeah. Now, these phishing emails usually contain your organization's branding and URLs that on the surface do appear to be legitimate. But once you click on this URL, it will take you to a malicious website, which will either install like a malicious script on your machine, right? Or it will maybe use some kind of malicious script to compromise your credentials. Yeah. So this is a very common attack that happens, that an organization faces every now and then, right? We have all got those emails where it says like you have won a lottery for $50,000 or something, right? Please just click on this link to claim it, right? And you click on the link, and then there's something that happens where your account gets compromised, right? That is a type of a phishing attack. The other kind of attack that an organization might face is called as spoofing. Yeah. Now, spoofing is a technique used to forge an email header so that the message appears to the recipient as having been sent from a trusted source. Yeah. It basically means, like, let's say we have Megan, who is the manager of Alex. Yeah. And then we have an unknown person over here who is maybe an attacker or a hacker. Yeah. So now this hacker wants to retrieve some credit card information from Alex. So now what this hacker will do is hacker will use a spoofing technique where they will impersonate as Megan and send an email to Alex as Megan asking about some sensitive information like credit card number or something like that. Now, since Alex thinks that the email is coming from Megan, Alex might reply to it thinking that he is sending this email to Megan. But this email will actually go to the hacker who will compromise your user's credential. Yeah. So spoofing can be easily identified by like manually by individuals by analyzing the message header. Okay. In message header, you have two attributes that you have to analyze. First is the mail from attribute and the from attribute. Okay. This mail from attribute is also referred to as the return path. Okay. So in this example, as you can see over here, the from attribute seems like the email is coming from security@woodgrovebank.com. Okay. So it seems like that the email is coming from a legitimate source. And as you can see, the content of the email, it says that we need to verify your banking details. Please click on the following link to accomplish this. But this mail from attribute or the mail from value or the return path is actually hidden in the message header. Okay. So it's not available for you to view it directly from email platform like Outlook or something like that. You have to analyze the message header to understand the return path. So now the user will think that they're replying to security@Woodgrove Bank, but the email will actually go to this fish@badguy.com. The other kind of attack that you can have is spam and malware. Okay. Now, spam or bulk email usually don't carry a payload that causes harm to your user system, but it can be annoying if you're receiving the amount of emails in a larger number. But malware, on the other hand, can cause great harm to an organization, and malware is often received in an email as an attachment or as an embedded link to a malicious website or a file. Yeah. And malware typically works in two stages. Stage one is when the user opens an infected attachment or visits a malicious website. And stage two is where this malicious payload is actually delivered. Yeah. I can see the common kinds of malwares that are out there. So you can see the majority has been dominated by Trojan malwares. Then we have worms, virus, and then adware, spyware, and there are some others as well. Now, as we saw in the cyber kill chain scenario, the first step is to breach an account. Yeah. So an account breach occurs when a user's account is compromised so that it can be used by an attacker to access any network resources. Right. And it can be done with various techniques that we saw before. It can be done with phishing attack, spoofing attack. It can be done through a malware attack as well. Now, one of the recommended methods that Microsoft suggests to mitigate an account breach issue is to use multi-factor authentication. Yeah. Multi-factor authentication, or also referred to as two-factor authentication, adds like an extra layer of security on top of your usernames and passwords that your users normally use to access any Office 365 resource. Yeah. So they have to perform an additional authentication to access their resource. Yeah. So in worst case scenarios where your users' accounts are compromised, if you have MFA implemented, they won't be able to bypass the MFA unless and until they invest a lot of resources in those attacks. So you can also protect against any kind of password cracking attempts by enabling directory controls against multiple failed login attempts. Okay. One of the services in Azure that offers this is called as Azure AD Smart Lockout. Yeah. Now, this service will monitor your user's sign-in activity and will try to identify any malicious sign-in activities, right? Let's say you fail to enter the correct password consecutively for 5 times. Yeah. So after that, Azure AD Smart Lockout will automatically lock you out maybe for 1 minute. Yeah. Till you make your sixth attempt. Now, this is done to prevent your hackers or attackers using any kind of credential harvesting tools. Okay. These credential harvesting tools can try maybe millions of combinations of passwords within minutes or even seconds. Yeah. So if you do not have any kind of smart lockout features like this that will prevent your hackers or attackers from guessing your end user's password, then it can become an issue. On top of this, as we talked about it, we have the Azure Identity Protection, which also enables organization to classify, label, and protect their documents and emails. Then we have the elevation of privilege attacks. Yeah. In an elevation of privilege scenario, an attacker has compromised maybe one or more accounts and now is trying to increase the power of that account. Yeah. One scenario could be if an administrator shares the same machine as your end user. Yeah. Let's say we have Alex over here, who's an end user. And then we have Megan, who's the administrator. Now, if the administrator shares the same machine as the machine that got compromised, right, then it will become easier for attacker to figure out how to log in on the shared machine using any kind of credential harvesting tool. Yeah. So that is why it is recommended that you use MFA, especially for your admin accounts or accounts that have access to your sensitive content. Yeah. It is also recommended to have a small number of Microsoft 365 global admin account. The ideal number should be anywhere between 2 to 4. Yeah. Because if you have more, like let's say if you have 15 global admin account, if an attacker is successful in conducting an elevation of privilege attack, the attacker will be able to easily hide if you have a higher number of global admin accounts. Yeah. Then data exfiltration is also a technique in which the is referred to as the unauthorized retrieval of data from a computer or a service. Yeah. So in this, basically what they try to do is they try to, once they elevate the privilege of the account, they'll try to exfiltrate your data. That means capturing your data or encrypting your data or deleting it for that reason. To prevent again data exfiltration, you can use access control list. You can set up external sharing policies in SharePoint Online that controls which users will be allowed to share files externally. Always follow the least privilege access. That means provide your users with the administrative roles that allow them to perform just enough administrative activities. Yeah. You can also use data classification schemes or DLP policies that will prevent your users from sharing any kind of sensitive data outside the organization. Now, data deletion is also a technique where data deletion occurs when an attacker deletes your data, usually in a way that makes recovery very difficult or maybe impossible in certain scenarios. Okay. A variant of this type of attack includes ransomware. And ransomware, as we talked about it, the attacker compromises your network and encrypts the data. And after this, it will demand a payment to get the key to decrypt the data. If they do not get the payment or the ransom, they might delete the data in a way where the recovery will almost become impossible. So to prevent account breach and elevation of privilege, employ any kind of data protection mechanisms like setting up DLP policies, configuring sensitivity labels, and so on. To avoid any kind of data deletion issues, make sure that you have some kind of retention mechanism in place. That is working with retention policies, setting up retention labels, or putting hold on some sensitive data. Now, the other kind of attack or the other kind of threat an organization can encounter is referred to as data spillage. Yeah. So let's say your organization has deployed best level of security and governance for all of the data that is part of your organization. Yeah. Now, if some users in your organization are sharing this data outside the organization for business specific reason, but what if this organization does not provide the same level of security as yours? Yeah. In that case, if you're sharing the data with these organization, an attacker can attack this organization that has low level of security and still your data is compromised, even though you employed the best level of security over here. Yeah. Data spillage also typically occurs when an employee unknowingly shares a highly confidential document with multiple people through email. Yeah. Now, organization can perform the following steps to manage a data spillage event. Yeah. First step is to manage who can access the case and set compliance boundaries. So e-discovery is a solution that will help you retrieve the data from different Microsoft 365 platforms, all from one place. Yeah. But since e-discovery gives you that level of access that gives you access to a lot of sensitive content, you want to make sure that there are certain compliance boundaries that are set. Okay. This must be done by your HR or the legal department for a lot of organizations out there. And then you can create an e-discoveries case and search for the spill data, review and validate the case findings and the data that was collected as part of that search. You can also use message trace logs to check how users shared the spill data. You can prepare the mailbox and permanently delete the spare data or verify proof of deletion and audit. Now, some of the other common types of attacks could be password cracking, okay, in which an attacker has acquired access to an application, service, or data that stores them, or a data store that allows them to try many different combinations for an account. Yeah. As we talked about it, if you want to prevent your organizations from encountering any password cracking attempts, you have to implement a feature called as the Azure AD Smart Lockout feature. Then you have the malicious insider. So one of your approved user is performing some kind of illicit activities in your tenant. Okay. And to prevent this, you must ensure that your accounts are secure and your privileges are well managed and that data is well protected. For this, you can also use a tool or a service called as the Insider Risk Management Service, yeah, which we are going to be discussing in further modules. Now that we have understood the different kind of threats an organization can face, right, when they have a Microsoft 365 environment, let's talk a little bit about the zero trust security model on which all of the Defender solutions are built, on top of which Microsoft has built all of the Defender solutions. Yeah. Now, the traditional approach to the security is, let's say this is my on-premise environment. I will create a security bubble around this environment. Okay. Maybe with the help of firewalls and proxy servers. Now, if I have devices that are sitting behind my network, right, if they are trying to access any of the company resources, since the request is coming from devices that are behind my network, I will automatically assume that this is a safe request. But the zero trust model says never trust, always verify. Yeah. Which basically means that you have to always assume breach and assume that all of the requests that are coming into your organization are malicious and you have to explicitly verify each and every one of them. Yeah. That is the zero trust security model that Microsoft has adopted to develop their Defender technologies. So as I said, the basic premise of the zero trust model is to assume that every request is a potential breach and every request must be verified as though it originated from an open network. Principles of the zero trust model is to verify explicitly using least privilege access and assume breaches are inevitable. Yeah. And yeah, this is the motto that we were talking about. Zero trust equals never trust and always verify. Yeah. Now, the components on which the zero trust model can be implemented are identities, devices, applications, data, infrastructure, and network. Now, the 5 steps to securing your identity infrastructure includes strengthening your credentials, right? Reducing your attack surface area. Wherever possible, use policies to automate the threat response, right? Increase your awareness about the different attacks an organization is facing and educate your users on the different kinds of attacks that they can face so that they can help themselves in a case of uh, in a case where they encounter these kind of attacks. So Azure Active Directory provides a strong adaptive standard-based identity verification required in the zero trust framework. Yeah. Conditional access is one example of the zero trust model. Now, as we talked about it, the zero trust networking basically says that instead of believing everything behind the corporate firewall is safe, an end-to-end zero trust strategy assumes breaches are inevitable. Yeah. That means you must verify each request as if it originated from an uncontrolled network itself or like a public network. Yeah. Hmm. So this zero trust strategy for security includes these following objectives, right? So be ready to handle attacks before they happen. Minimize the extent of damage and how it spreads. Yeah. And increase the difficulty of compromising your cloud footprint. So the zero trust network basically eliminates the concept of trust that's based on network location within a perimeter. Okay. Instead, they will leverage a device and user trust claims to get access to any organizational data or resources. Now, adopting a zero trust approach to security protection involves the following key areas as we talked about it. We have identities, right? For which you can go with some passwordless authentication solution like Windows Hello for Business, right? In which you can use biometric authentication. You can also use PIN authentication. Maybe if you don't want to go with Windows Hello for Business, you can go with FIDO2 security keys, right? You can use solutions like Authenticator app and so on. You can use conditional access policies to add like an extra layer of security, right? You can use Azure AD verifiable credentials as well. In terms of security, we have a lot of Defender solutions. We have Defender for Endpoint that provides you protection for all of your endpoints. That includes Windows 10 and 11 devices, as well as Mac OS devices. You have Defender for Office 365. We have Azure Sentinel, which is now referred to as Microsoft Sentinel. We have threat analytics, secured code in the Windows Server. Then we have compliance. Compliance can be implemented with the help of Microsoft Purview Information Protection Service, right? Which will help you, which will allow you to work with services like sensitivity labels. You have insider risk management policies. You have data loss prevention policies, and Microsoft Purview integration with the Microsoft Purview Information Protection Service. Now, Microsoft has new security, compliance, and identity certifications. So there are dedicated courses that talks about how these security solutions can be implemented in your organization. Yeah. For example, we have SC 400 that talks about how you can implement information protection and governance policy in your organization. Yeah. Such as we have SC 300. The complete SC series revolves around security implementation. Now, let's talk about the different security solutions that Microsoft is offering to defend against these kind of threats that we have seen so far. Yeah. So let's start with understanding Defender for Office 365. Yeah. So when it comes to email protection, Microsoft uses a service called as the Exchange Online Protection Service, which can be combined with Defender for Office 365. Now, Exchange Online Protection is capable of providing you email protection against spoofing, phishing, and spam or malware attacks that you might encounter in the Exchange Online environment. So EOP basically uses a combination of IP and URL reputation, domain reputation, spam and malware filtering, content filtering, and connection filtering to determine legitimate emails and the illegitimate ones. EOP can be extended to include more advanced features by enabling Microsoft Defender for Office 365, which is earlier known as Advanced Threat Protection. Yeah. So Defender for Office 365 uses a lot of features, like we have concept of safe attachment and safe links policy, right? We have the quarantine feature where all of the potentially malicious email will be quarantined for an admin to analyze it and then take a call, whether it's an actual case of a malicious email or whether it's a case of misclassification. We have the anti-phishing policies, right? Spoof intelligence service that will help you detect spoofed emails in your organization. So you can see this is the example of how we can use Exchange Online filter with Defender for Office 365 to differentiate between legitimate emails and malicious emails. Right? So if a sender is sending an email to Exchange Online service, right? As soon as the email arrives in the Exchange Online platform, the Exchange Online protection service will start verifying the signatures of that email and it will start analyzing the message header of that email. Right? Where we have anti-spam policies, anti-phishing policies, and anti-malware policies that will determine these are configured with some default configuration that will help you to categorize whether an email is malicious or safe. Once it goes through all of these filters, then the email is delivered to your user's inbox unless you have Defender for Office 365. If you have Defender for Office 365 and the email contains some kind of attachment, this email will be sent to a sandbox environment called as the detonation chamber, where the attachment will go through a verification process to check if the attachment has some kind of malware in it. If it is determined to be unsafe, it will be deleted. If it is determined to be safe, then the email will be sent to your end user with the attachment. Similarly, if the email contains any kind of malicious link, the email will be delivered to the user. And as soon as the user clicks on the malicious link, a verification process will ensure that the link is safe. If the link is determined to be unsafe, it will be deleted or it will be blocked. Now, we have talked about the Azure AD Identity Protection Service and how it can help you detect security related challenges for the identities that are stored in your Azure Active Directory. Now, the question might be, what about the identities that are stored in your on-premise Active Directory? Do we have a solution that can help us protect that? The answer is absolutely yes. Yeah. And the solution is referred to as Microsoft Defender for Identity. Yeah. So in this case, what you have to do is you have to download a sensor called as the MDI sensor. Yeah. This has to be downloaded on your domain controller. Yeah. And this sensor is designed to detect malicious activities that might be that an organization might be facing with the identities that are stored in your on-premise Active Directory. Yeah. So it monitors and monitor and profile user behavior and activities. It protects user identities and reduces the attack surface. And whenever it detects these malicious activity, it will send these activities to Defender for Identity portal for you to run analysis on it. So you'll be able to identify any suspicious activities and advance attacks across the cyber attack kill chain. And then you can investigate alerts and user activities. Then for your organizations to have the endpoint protection services, Microsoft has introduced the concepts of Defender for Endpoint, okay, in which you can onboard Windows as well as Mac OS devices onto the Defender for Endpoint platform, okay, which will provide you with endpoint behavioral sensors, right? So there is a Defender for Endpoint sensor that gets installed in these machines. Yeah. This sensor will constantly monitor any malicious activities that this device is encountering, and this will send alerts to the Defender for Endpoint portal. Now, with the help of cloud security analytics and threat intelligence service, you can categorize these alerts based on the severity of those activity. And accordingly, then you can take an action to mitigate these alerts or resolve any issues. Yeah. Now, the Defender for Endpoint integrates the following features to deliver preventative protection, post-breach detection, automated investigation, and response. Then we have the threat intelligence service. Yeah. Now, threat intelligence service, as we talked about it, is a combination of machine learning algorithms, plus it is integrated with AI. Okay. So there are millions of tenants that are out there. Okay. So what this threat intelligence services basically do is they analyze signals that are being generated from all of these tenants. Okay. And based on the algorithms that they have created, they will categorize these signals as either good or bad. Okay. If it is determined to be bad, then there will be severity of this bad alerts, maybe low, medium, or high. It will also help you to categorize the different kinds of threats that an organization is facing out there. Okay. And this threat intelligence service, or the information from the threat intelligence service, is used by Defender solutions like Defender for Identity, Defender for Endpoint, Defender for Office 365 to categorize the different signals. And then you can create policies around it to defend against these threats. So yeah, organization can use Microsoft 365 threat intelligence to make any data-driven decisions on the cybersecurity requirements. They can gain insights into how threats are manifested, who is being threatened, types of threats, and frequency of these threats. So Microsoft Threat Intelligence uses the Threat Explorer, which provides security analysts with reports and graphical views of the threat landscape in that tenant. Then we have Microsoft Cloud App Security, which is now referred to as Defender for Cloud Apps. Now, Defender for Cloud Apps is a solution that Microsoft offers, which acts like a cloud access security broker tool. Okay. It provides you insight into suspicious activity in the Microsoft 365 by giving you enhanced visibility and control over your Microsoft 365 tenant. Right. So in an environment, you can have Microsoft 365 applications or Microsoft 365 cloud apps, and you can have third-party cloud applications. Right. Now, these cloud application can be accessed from devices that is sitting behind your firewalls and proxy servers, and this can be obviously accessed over the internet as well. Yeah. So Defender for Cloud App will help you discover any kind of issues that you're facing with your cloud application, such as a user is logging in from a device that is affected by malware. Okay. And it's trying to access a cloud application, maybe something like OneDrive. Okay. Obviously, this is a suspicious activity. We do not want any affected device accessing data from our file storage system. So this will be detected as a malicious activity. And obviously, you can create file policies and detection policies to not only detect the activity, but take in automated actions on top of it. Not only this, but you can upload your firewall and proxy server logs onto the Defender for Cloud App portal to analyze different issues that your organization is facing with the devices that are sitting behind your network and they're trying to access these cloud applications. Yeah. With the help of app connectors, you can create a connection with this third-party cloud apps, and the Defender for Cloud App will also analyze activities that are happening on these third-party cloud application and accordingly take actions on it. Right. Apart from this, you have security reports that can be analyzed from the Microsoft 365 Defender portal. Okay. There is a security report, right? Right, which will give you and which will help you track the protection status of an organization's identities, data, devices, apps, and infrastructure. Okay, so it's an overall overview of all the security issues that you're facing in your organization. Then you have the email and collaboration report. This will enable your organization to review Microsoft recommended actions to help improve email and collaboration security. Yeah. So we are basically talking about the reports that can help you analyze different kind of security issues that your organization is facing in your environment. Yeah. So in the email and collaboration reports, basically you get a basic idea about the different issues an organization is facing. That means what kind of different malware they are receiving, right? And are they receiving it on as a form of email, or is it a file that is shared on SharePoint or OneDrive? Uh, If there are any malicious links that are sent in your organization, this can also be analyzed from this email and collaboration report. And again, you get an idea whether this malicious links are shared through email or platforms like SharePoint, OneDrive, or even Teams for that matter. You get reports about your endpoints as well, right? Which will enable your organization to view information concerning threat protection, right? Like device health and compliance, if you have any vulnerable devices or any web protection services that you require. Now, a user who wants to analyze these reports have to be part of one of these role groups. Okay. So they have to have the organization management role group, the security admin role group, security reader, or a global reader. Right. So yeah, that's it, guys. That will bring us to the end of today's session, where we discuss a lot of concept revolving around identity synchronization, and we also discuss a lot of concepts revolving around implementing security solutions in Microsoft 365. Yeah. Now, like with the session that we had yesterday, we're going to have a quick knowledge check or a Q&A session where I'll be displaying certain questions on the screen. Yeah. And I'll give you guys a couple of minutes to answer those questions. And once you have locked in your answer, we will discuss this where I'll display the answer to the question and I'll also give you an explanation about it. Yeah. So yeah, let's get started. And I would encourage every one of you to actively participate in this. Yeah. All right, let's get started. Okay, so the first question is which Defender solution provides protection for Microsoft 365 cloud apps and third-party SaaS application? Yeah. So for those of you who answered Defender for cloud apps, you're absolutely right about it. Okay. We use Defender for Endpoint to provide our organization with endpoint protection service. And then we use Defender for Identity, right, to provide or to analyze security related challenges that we face for the identities that are stored in your on-premise Active Directory. Yeah. And then we use Defender for Office 365 to provide us or to help us identify security related challenges for our collaboration tools like Exchange, SharePoint, OneDrive, and Teams. So yeah, let's move on to the next question. Okay, guys. So the next question is which technique is used to forge an email header so that the message appears to recipients as having been sent from a trusted source? Yeah. So the technique over here is called as spoofing, right? There are the other attacks that you see over here are also a kind of an attack, right? Kind of an email attack like phishing, ransomware, and spamming. But the specific attack that we are talking about in this question was spoofing. Yeah. Let's move on to the next question. Okay, guys. So the next question is which authentication solution does not require you to sync passwords to Azure AD? Okay. So in this case, the correct answers, there are actually two correct answers. The first one is pass-through authentication, and the other one is referred to as ADFS. Okay. Only in password has sync, you don't have to synchronize the passwords in plain text. You still synchronize your password, but you do it in a hash value. Yeah. Right. So let's move on to the next question. Okay. So the next question is, guys, which tool is used to synchronize identities to Azure Active Directory? Right. Uh, I believe everyone knows the answer to this question. The tool is Azure AD Connect.